All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Bare Hands Podcast, where we take the gloves off and discuss the down and dirties of being a man. If this is your first time listening, we highly encourage you to go back and listen to some previous episodes, but before you do, just to let you know, this is a podcast where we just want to teach you some basic tricks of being a man, simple things we think everybody should know that we find interesting, and hopefully learn stuff along the way. To start off this week's episode, I just want to say hi to my co-host, Wade. How you doing, bud?
Hello, Daniel.
Darren, my producer.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey, man, you brought us an interesting drink this week for our beer of the week.
Yep, I was on vacation with the wife and kiddo down in Fredericksburg, Texas. And anybody from around here knows that's wine country, but not a big wine fan.
Yeah, this looks a little whiny to me.
It's a little bit of a wine. But I found it at a bar in a wine store, and it's actually mead, which is the oldest drink that we have on record.
It smells like wine. It's very fruity. It smells good. It's called it's from Texas Mead Works. It's just called traditional mead. 12% alcohol by volume, and it's probably going to be awful, but let's give it a go.
I figured we'd give it a shot.
I got some nice.
It's honey and grain.
I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that I don't own
Wine glasses?
wine glasses.
Mason jars work just fine.
I have copious amounts of mason jars that we'll discuss the reason for that later on in this season's. Whoa.
Nice pour.
Looks like apple juice.
It does actually smell like apple juice.
Kind of does.
All right. This is exciting. Cheers,
I
guys.
hope I don't mead anymore.
Texas Mead and another episode with y'all.
Can we count that as Wade's joke for the week?
It is.
Whoa.
I've been working on it all.
Whoa. It does not taste like it smells. A little tart, guys.
Okay, here we go.
Not the worst thing, but it's not the best. What do you think?
I think if I'm a knight sitting around a round table, it's probably pretty great to whatever I had earlier that day.
In your goat bladder that you go for an open fire. Yes, in that situation, if I'm drinking out of a goat bladder, I will have Texas Mead. Other than that, I'm probably going to stick to a cerveza.
We should have. Viking horns would have been a good one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Viking horn hanging on the wall
Of
our studio.
Yeah.
That's actually my buddy Seth's Viking horn. His grandpa was real, not superstitious,
Horny?
but traditional in the fact that whenever he went hunting out at his farm that they hunted on, the first thing he did every morning was blow a big horn call. It's almost just giving them a chance in their minds. I know a bunch of Midwestern hunters, like Pennsylvania hunters, will do that. Just like, hey, I'm coming for you type thing. It's pretty cool. So this week we're going to talk about varmint not hunting, but just getting rid of varmints in the house. It's just kind of a simple skill that
I say we blow a horn.
Yeah, it might work.
Scare the
Maybe
varmints.
we'll cover that today. But it's a simple skill everybody needs to know. It's something that I don't know much about that Wade's been researching and just has a lot of personal experience with that he can share with us. But what do you think, Wade? You got any good tips for us?
I don't know if I would say I have personal experience with varmints. It's not like I
You told me a whole bunch of stories off air about it.
I live in a swaller or anything like that. Is that a word?
Yes.
Holler?
Yes.
Holler's a good place.
I think do pigs make a swaller?
I don't know.
It's one of those Garland words.
Hey, y'all brought it up, not me.
In case you guys didn't know.
In case y'all forgot from the first episode.
Wade is third, fourth? Sorry, more. Sixth generation Richardson.
Oh my gosh. Who would brag about that?
Sorry.
I guess before we get started, what's the upside to having a varmint in your house? Have you guys eaten any varmints?
I actually have brought a varmint into work one time, and that would be a squirrel. And we skinned it. We quartered it out.
Hold on. Did you bring it in alive to work?
No, we brought just quarter pieces in.
Okay.
And it was a very simple cook. I just lightly battered it, and we just cook it in some oil, just like
you
frying a chicken fried steak or anything. Turned out real good. Made a little gravy with it.
Squirrel gravy with it.
I think even the most pickiest person we work with even didn't necessarily, I don't think, loved it. But they didn't hate it either. Like, there are some uses to this stuff. I like squirrel.
One guy said, "I'm not poor." And I was
that
like,
was the comment.
That was the comment. Why he didn't
That's what he
eat it.
took away from that. Like, I don't have to eat squirrel. I'm not poor.
It was delicious.
I thought so too.
It actually kind of fired me up about going squirrel hunting.
Yeah, hopefully we can do a podcast on that one day and just talk about hunting squirrels and then how to prepare squirrels. Because I've never had squirrel dumplings, but the guy who owns that horn that we were just talking about, his grandpa, his wife, they were very Southern folks. After she would cook anything, but one of her favorite things to cook in the fall or spring was squirrels. So
yeah.
And I never got to have squirrel dumplings, but it'd be cool to try it sometime.
Well, I gotta admit, I didn't know that squirrels and rabbits were varmints until like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Just because we always hunted them and they were a
They're
game
not
animal.
bad.
Yeah.
Well, squirrels, I mean, man, they do some damage.
They're easy to identify, though, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's going to be your first step. And let's say you got something under your house or in your attic. I guess people live in town now don't get a whole lot of stuff under their house with slabs, but if you had a pier and beam house or something like that, you're going to get something underneath the house. So first step, identify it. And how are we going to identify it?
I think the sound that squirrels make, like when they get into your attic. So we had one in our attic, I don't know, 2 years ago, and it sounds like a herd of cats running around in your attic.
Definitely if you have if it's a commercial building or something like that, and you have that drop ceiling,
Man, that'd be a good way to tell.
it's super loud.
Yep.
You can really tell the difference. They're a little weightier than a rat or especially mice. But for other things like droppings, how they poop. We when I was in college, we rented a house on 60 acres, and this guy that we rented it from, his mother had passed away probably a decade before, and he was using it as a storage place. Well, raccoons had taken up residence in this house, and we went in there, and there was a pile, like apparently raccoons poop in the same spot every time. And so it was like they had climbed up on the bed, hung their rear over the side of the bed, and pooped. There was a pile probably 2.5 feet tall on the side of the bed of raccoon poop. And it was impressively hard to get off the floor.
I bet.
It was hung in there pretty good. So other ways of identifying things, Daniel? You're our resident tracker. What do you think?
I don't know. We just go by species first. I think rats and mice, the biggest thing is just look for small little tiny droppings inside the house. One thing I've noticed, because I've had some mice in this old farmhouse that I live in, is that you'll see those small droppings, but you'll also find like pieces of torn up trash or paper or something like that kind of stuffed in their corner, like they're building a nest or something. Yeah. You can sometimes hear them like little scamperings across if there's a couple of them, but usually if there's one, there's more, so you will hear them.
I think the smell for rats and mice, like if they're condensed into an area, because I get them out in my shop, and I live in the middle of farm fields. And I get in my shop all the time, and if they get into something, there's definitely a distinct.
I think it's their pee too that you're smelling.
Yeah, that's
soaking into all those little torn up pieces that they make their bedding and nests out of.
Yep.
And then you had mentioned raccoons also, and that's one of the biggest ways that I know about finding them or knowing that that's what's going on. Is they will tear up your outside trash. That's a big one. Like you wake up in the morning, your trash is torn up. There's a high probability it's either a stray cat or a raccoon. But a raccoon, they will do like Wade said, where they do poop in the same exact area. Like they have their latrine spot. You're like, why is that one spot full of poop? That's weird. But then it's not anywhere else, and that's usually indicative of a raccoon. Also, they're very easily identifiable. Bandit-looking face, ringtail.
The masked man.
Right.
Yeah.
And then stray cats.
You know how to tell if you got stray cats?
There's no mice.
You don't have any rats.
Stray cats are not always a bad thing.
No, I don't think so.
Especially if you got a barn or a shop or something like that.
I had one show up here at this farmhouse, and it would only come to the door when it was hungry. So maybe every couple of days I'd feed it. But it took care of the mice problem around here, and it never let me touch it. But it was a nice little cat.
Say stray cats as a whole is a problem. I mean, like they kill all kinds of birds and a bunch of other species, but having one around your house, not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I'm actually looking for a stray cat right now if anyone's got one.
Old barn cat trick.
I need a barn cat.
There you go.
They said get a female.
I didn't know that.
I don't know.
You think that would almost be a bad thing just with them breeding so much.
Well, but they said that the females in the cat species is typically the hunter. And so
that's interesting.
The males are just constantly looking for female cats, so they don't stick around, but the female cat will stick around and hunt.
That's awesome.
Which is why you want a barn cat.
They stay in heat until they actually do breed, so that could be problematic if you can't get it fixed. If it's a
Yeah,
bark
but I
cat.
also heard if you get it fixed, and somebody will chime in and tell me I'm wrong about this, but I always heard if you get it fixed, they're not as aggressive hunting wise. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've heard stuff like that too.
I would say that applies to most
And-
things that get fixed. Yeah.
The next one obviously is my least favorite, skunks. Just because
But they're the most easy to identify. I mean, everybody knows what a skunk looks like if you don't just
Pepe Le Pew.
go to your internet search browser and just images
I
of
think he's
skunk.
been canceled, hasn't he?
Oh yeah.
Pepe Le
the
Pew.
Cancel culture. Got
Yeah.
him.
Sorry,
Oh, that's
so-
too bad.
I didn't mean to bring him up.
The French didn't fight that one.
Yeah, so you
what
mentioned
does the
earlier
French fight?
pier and beam homes and not getting stuff underneath the house anymore. This house right here is actually a pier and beam home. And it seems like every spring there's a family of skunks that get underneath this house and breed. And for a couple of days, this whole house will just smell so bad of just skunk smell.
awful.
It's horrible. It'll ruin your clothes. And I've learned some few tricks along the ways to get rid of them. But yeah, it's a miserable couple of weeks.
What's
to say
worse
the
than a
least.
skunk? A pack of breeding skunks.
Underneath your pier and beam
We're not laughing
home
at
with
you.
hardwood floors.
So-
We're laughing with your dilemma. Not at
This
you.
is not recommended. Bare Hands Podcast does not recommend this technique. But my grandfather's best friend, they had skunks under his house. He had a pier and beam house.
Right.
Dug underneath the beam, slid a garden hose under there, duct taped it to his truck, turned his truck on. They got a hotel for a couple days. But
That's pretty genius.
killed the skunk.
Right.
And then the obvious problem after that is trying to get it out.
Yeah, so let's think about maybe some not such hardcore ways of getting rid of varmints, Wade. Do you have any other suggestions?
Traps. I mean, that's probably the relocating them and things like that. I hate to keep bringing up work, but we actually caught a squirrel in the attic at work and
In a cage?
in a trap,
Oh,
and one of our associates took it outside, and there's a pond nearby. Took it down to the pond. The squirrel beat him back to the
Well,
building.
yeah.
that's awesome.
It was hilarious. I mean, you could see it coming
Yeah.
a mile away.
Yeah.
So that doesn't always work the best, but you probably need to relocate them a little further away than just as far as you can walk in 15 minutes.
Those
or
traps
something.
work pretty well, though. Those just small little varmint traps that have they're just little rectangle metal cages where you put bait on one end. They walk in from the other side, trigger a little mechanism, and it falls behind them. It's good for catching stuff like stray cats, raccoons. You can just put some tuna or some chicken, something that has a strong smell on the other side, set it up near the bottom side of your house or near the problem area. And like Wade said, it'll lure them in. We'll catch them, and then we can relocate them to another spot.
And you can get those traps at hardware store, feed store.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not
They're not hard to
obviously online, but
and
they're not hard
they'll
to
last
get.
you forever too. So like
Yep.
if you do have a problem at the house, you could borrow one from a friend, but it's worth making the investment because you probably will end up using it. One way that I've used here at this farmhouse is actually throwing up snares underneath the house and cotton skunks going underneath with snares. So it's a little bit more old school, primitive way of doing it, but it's worked well.
Yeah.
That they just won't go into the cages here. So that works for outside the house. I know inside the house, a different type of trap is a mouse trap. Y'all ever use those or stick pads? What works for y'all if y'all ever had any problems?
We use stick pads a lot. We have mice all the time just because where we live. But yeah, the sticky pad, glue traps, those work better than anything, I think.
Had when I was in high school, worked at a hardware store. And they were getting into the bird seed, so I put down a couple of those big, I don't know, maybe like the half.
The rat trap.
Yeah, the rat trap, sticky trap. Something drug it off. Whatever
No
it was.
way.
Yeah.
Cow.
So in the attic, there's a rat with a trap stuck to its foot, just walking around,
Still
ready for the
Still
snow.
there to this day.
I know.
That's so the legend goes.
So once you identify it, you need to make a plan.
Right.
The plan, we've kind of gone over most of the plan scenarios, but other things that you can do is like put out ammonia, set out some food outside the house, maybe catch it that way, kind of like Daniel was talking about in the traps.
I know ammonia, they say, just draws them out from underneath the house or draws them out of there. They don't like it.
Right. You can
Pushes them out.
Yes.
you can put ammonia on a rag or something and kind
Right.
of put it under the house or in your attic. But it's also going to drive you nuts too, because
Right.
I mean, you know,
Very similar
Not
to
the
smoking them
ammonia
out.
stinks.
Yeah,
Yes.
not the best smelling stuff.
But it's not. It's as far as the smoking out concerned, ammonia is not really gonna. It's just gonna irritate you.
you can,
You
if
know,
you're
put a
any
little
kind
bit
of
on a rag. It's not gonna hurt you.
any kind of a gardener, you can plant mint or get like the essential oil, and spearmint stuff, and use that too. And that's more like
One of those just the smell of people type things. Yeah.
and they don't like that smell for some reason, so push them away.
Excellent segue.
Is
Because because there is on the way to preventing them, they actually make like a granule repellent that you can spread out like fertilizer
Oh yeah.
or ant poison or what. It's not
Borax
ant
or
poison, but
something.
yeah,
Similar
something.
stuff they have for snakes tee. You
Right.
can put some of that out and around your house.
Oh man, we didn't even talk about snakes under your house.
That's
Nobody
a
wants to
whole
deal
nother
with
topic.
that.
Let's just not even
Nobody
mention
wants
that
to
one.
talk about snakes.
You know how you know if you got snakes?
Hopefully you don't.
You get bit.
Yeah.
There's not any rats.
I don't know about all that.
There's a whole lot of tips you're giving me that involve not finding rats, and they all sound like the same thing.
I don't have any rats. There's somebody's listening right now going, I don't have any rats. I must be covered up in stray cats and snakes.
Before we move
Some
on,
guy that lives in an apartment in New York City is like, well, I don't have rats here. What? So I have them have snakes and
Yeah.
stray cats?
actually, you
In
might.
New York, probably yes, you do. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is completely random, but you were talking about New York. I just read a book called like The American Coyote. It's really good. It was talking about the coyote in America and how it's such a resilient species. And they said for every person in the U.S., no matter where you at, there's a coyote within 1 square mile of you, including New York City.
Okay.
Like
Did
they
you
live
hear-
everywhere.
Did you hear about the guy in New York? I think it was New York, who tried to eat a coyote.
I've seen Steve Ranella try to do that on Meat Eater.
Okay, well this guy tries to eat a coyote. He like makes his own little
Not a
fire
sponsor.
pit and grill in his backyard, and he goes to eat the coyote. And the neighbors called because they thought it was a dog, and so the game wardens came and took all his barbecue and took it away. Like didn't let it.
Interesting.
Why'd they take it? Did the game warden think it was a dog too?
Yeah, they like he didn't have any proof that it wasn't a dog, like other than just telling them it's a coyote. But his neighbors thought, and they investigated and asked the neighbors if they were
It's
missing
like
a
red
dog.
flag dog laws?
I guess I don't know.
I thought you could eat a dog.
In some states, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that would start knocking on the door of some PETA rules on animal protection type stuff. I doubt it.
Yeah, there's a high morality around that in the
We'll look it up
US
sometime, but I don't think you're going to be able to eat your dog, Wade.
Versatile pet
Really?
survival.
But hang on, before you move on to what to do after you get them, one thing I wanted to bring up was poison, and more specifically poison for mice inside the house. I've used it here at the farmhouse before because they can just be real tricky to find, and I've seen them used other places before, and it does work. Just be careful where you put it. Like if I put it out here at the house, I don't have a dog, but if I did have a dog, just put it back behind the couch where the dog's not going to get it, or your small kid's not going to get it. That way it does a certain animal that's not supposed to be in your house, the only thing that's going to find it. And just be prepared. Who knows where that thing's going to run off and die, so it's going to stink for a little bit. And that's the one downside.
So
of that.
most of those poisons, they make them thirsty.
Yeah, they
And so
dehydrate them.
they usually have to leave to the premises to try to find water. So
I actually had no idea about that.
that does help, but they're likely to die. That's why, man, the poisons and stuff like that, I'll use them, but I like traps. I like the old fashioned.
I like traps a lot better because then
Tom
I
and
know
Jerry.
I can see it. Like I know
Yeah,
that
the
I
stick
got
pads are
it.
good for mice, and then the traps outside the house are good for your raccoons and your cats and stuff like that for sure. And they'll even catch bobcats if they're big enough, or wild pigs. I mean, we can go on forever about the stuff you can get rid of with traps, but yeah, maybe we'll have a trapping segment one day because I don't know much about it. I'd love to learn more about snaring and trapping and stuff, but.
There's definitely an art to that.
All right, Wade, speaking of traps, I got a skunk underneath my house that crawled into the trap. Oh, no. Now what am I going to do?
You're gonna need a tarp.
Yeah.
blanket that you don't
if
care
you're,
about.
if you're not, if you caught the animal to relocate it, and you're not gonna kill it or put it down, then you're gonna have to have something to protect yourself from that skunk because he's gonna immediately spray as soon as you get under there. So, my suggestion is a Home Depot blue tarp. Throw it over the top of it. Walk at him with the tarp. Throw it over the top of him. He's gonna spray. Don't wear your favorite shirt.
Right.
So, and then wrap that sucker up and haul him away.
Right. One thing I've actually always done is tie like a 50-foot section of rope onto the cage. That way, if I do catch a skunk underneath the house or something,
excellent idea.
That's pretty smart. Yeah.
I just grab that string 50 yards away or whatever, 50 foot, 100 foot, however long you feel comfortable.
Right.
You know what I don't know?
Drag it out somewhere.
How effective? What's the distance on a skunk?
I was just wondering that too.
I don't know. Everybody's looking at me like I'm a skunk
What's our
expert here.
producer doing?
Yeah,
I'm looking for his device.
I've never actually been sprayed by a skunk, but while he's looking, there was something I wanted to share with you, and that was if your dog gets sprayed by a skunk. Wade has the old wives' tale of, what was it, tomato paste?
Well, I always heard like a tomato bath, but my dog got sprayed by a skunk.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting in the house one night, and we actually had some family over right outside of Garland.
15 feet is the approximate spray.
So, yeah, 50 foot of rope and you'll be good.
50 foot's perfect.
That's not that you're not going to smell it after 15 feet, but the actual
It won't
oils
stick
of
to
the
you.
skunk are
Yeah.
not
Right.
going to get on you.
Right, not going to
Past
be
15
affected
feet.
by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we actually smelled a skunk, and I opened the back door because our dog was out there, and he comes in, and the skunk smell is just horrendous. But it was like you couldn't pinpoint it on the dog.
Huh.
And like I grabbed the dog and smelled him. Well, my uncle walks over and he starts petting the dog like it's his long lost friend. He's just like, oh, little puppy. Oh, he's just all over this dog. Well, the dog turns broadside to me, and there's a green spot on his shoulder that's probably as big as round as a Coke can.
Yeah.
And it was the most vile smell. But anyway, I didn't have any tomatoes, so I took tomato paste straight out of a can, put him in the tub, hosed him down, and then rubbed that right on that spot. And probably the next afternoon,
It was a lot better.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Now, the non-wives' tale way, which I'm sure that works, but is to put a quarter cup of baking soda and 2 teaspoons of like dishwashing soap and a quart of hydrogen peroxide in like a bowl, mix it up, and then wash your dogs with that, and that should get it off. And as far as you go, your clothes, add a half cup of baking soda to your clothes when you're washing it, and then just let them air dry outside. And then you're just going to have to take a shower and wash.
I think the best thing for clothes is just fire.
Yeah. Just go
Yeah,
ahead and
real
get you
way.
some new ones.
Yeah. What about Dawn? Can just like regular Dawn soap get the skunk smell off? I mean, they use it to clean the oil off of ducks.
It was real oily, that spot on the dog.
Yeah.
And I used Dawn, and it took the oil away, but not the smell.
Gotcha.
So I don't know
So
how.
start with Dawn soap. If it's safe
Yeah,
for
I
the
mean-
ducks, it's safe for your dogs.
Yeah.
Now, you could always, if you live in the city or something, call animal control, and they might let you borrow a trap, or I'm sure they'll come let you borrow a trap or help you with that situation. So that'd be a good resources for you as your local city's animal control if you live in a town.
Adopt a dog while you got him on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only like $75, and they come spayed or neutered. Mm-hmm. Pretty good deal.
And then
That's assuming you don't want to eat it.
if you do catch something more like a stray cat, yeah, don't eat it.
Just saying, if we're talking
What?
about the possum and the raccoon, like I've eaten both of those things, and they were both pretty good.
I was
the possum
unaware
was way
that
better.
you could get thrown in the hoosgow for eating your dog.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Can't eat your
Apparently.
dog, but you can eat a possum.
I do want to state just for
And dogs don't
Just
even
for-
eat ticks.
just for follow up, that guy it was a coyote.
Yeah.
They sent it in
Right.
and found out it was a coyote, but it's kind of messed up. They
What
took
kind
his,
of game warden can't tell it's a coyote, though? I mean,
don't
I
know.
love law enforcement, and I love our game wardens, but come on.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is New York City. If you'd have called Lone
get
Star,
a
if
rope.
you'd have
Yeah,
called
Lone
Lone
Star
Star
Law.
Law, they'd have been all over. it.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll also help you get more protected species like owls or a bobcat or something like that.
Tailhawks,
think they
stuff
love
that
doing
gets
that.
stuck
You
in
can
your attic.
call a game warden, and they will relocate
Yeah.
that stuff. Or if it's an injured bird on your property or in that cage by chance, they can take it to different places. So more pesky animals, take them out, get rid of them, whatever you need to do. Cats and stuff, you can turn them into your local shelter. And then the more protected animals like owls and things like that that you just happen to catch in your trap, call your game warden. Find them a safe home.
That is a good point. If you catch any wild animal
Yeah,
and you're not 100% sure what to do,
right.
you can call the game warden or call, your parks and wildlife.
There's rules and regulations on
At
there.
authority.
least,
Yeah.
at least amount they're going to give you direction, right? If
Right.
they don't actually show up themselves. But
And most of the time, it's illegal to own wild animals. Like you can't just keep wild animals. So
Have you seen Joe Exotic? I feel like you might have missed that.
yeah, he's in jail.
Yeah.
Well, not for owning tigers. There's
Well, but,
more.
like-
There's more tigers in the state of Texas
Okay, Joe,
than there are in like wild in the world.
I'll stop
I'm
while
just
you
telling
Google
you.
it.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
No, I'm serious.
If I
that's
catch a
Joe
tiger
Rogan
in the
bit.
cage, we're gonna have a major problem.
I don't. I'm out on that.
You are?
I missed that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Dude,
Sorry.
he has this whole bit about tigers in Texas.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it is
does he
actually
really?
pretty funny.
It is.
yeah.
It's
Oh.
hilarious.
It's on his
Never seen
YouTube
it.
skit. It's a pretty good one.
I'll have to go look
But
at it.
assuming we
Yeah.
don't
Thanks,
catch a
Joe.
wild
Taking the wind out of my sails.
tiger, Wade, and we get rid of the problem, you got any tricks or keep this stuff from returning to my house?
Well, we already talked about granules, like throwing out, buy a bag of repellent or something like that.
Plant some mint.
Actually, at our church, we always have problems with skunks and squirrels getting under our church, and we bought some of those motion detector things. And it's kind of funny because you walk by them and you hear them go beep, 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 beep.
Oh yeah.
And I guess they send out some sort of, audio signal that's irritating to animals. And it's actually worked.
I have one you plug in that's very audible. Like you and I could sit there and be very annoyed by it.
Yeah.
It's got a volume setting, and I don't turn it on because
Does it work? I mean,
It's driven them out. Like
Yeah.
It's kept them from being in there. But
We actually
I don't
went
keep
all
it
winter.
on all the time because
we actually went all winter at our church, and there was we didn't
really
have any problem. Of course, there's also COVID, so they might have been scared to gather.
Yeah.
So I don't
they
know.
were just
So,
social distancing. It's
A
fine.
big problem out at my deer leases, and I'm sure everyone's deer lease, is rats inside your camper when you're not there or in the off season. And that is one thing that I've heard people recommend. I haven't tried that technique, but you can order those on Amazon or Walmart or your local hardware store. You can get those big 8-packs or 4-packs, and you plug those things into the wall outlets. And it is supposed to deter them from coming in just from that audible sound. But I've never actually tried it. I mean, the biggest thing I've tried out there is just keeping the food away when I leave, putting everything up, taking it home, which seems to be my biggest way to prevent this stuff is just getting rid of the food.
Yeah, you quit giving them a reason to get there.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times they're in there for warmth or
Well, this
if you leave them stuff plugged in, the electricity, and like they're drawn to all that. So
the next one actually kind of touches on that. It's like vegetation around your house.
Oh, yeah.
Like keep it cut back, because if none of these varmints have anything else in common, they don't want to be seen.
Right.
They don't want to be, they don't want you to know they're there. So if you got large, amounts of grass or any kind of bush or anything that's giving them ample cover, if you can trim that back, cut that back, that's a pretty simple one, probably, that's easy to do.
And I had mentioned it to you earlier, but the one random one that I had heard from someone is to move your bird feeder away from your house.
Oh yeah.
Just to keep the food from falling down around your house. Like, keep it off in your pasture. I know we all like looking at that stuff, but it just prevents more food from gathering around your
ever
birds
driven-
are messy.
You ever driven down the road and seen like a metal, or tin, they're really like stovepipes, but people wrap them around the trunks of their tree?
Oh,
They
yeah,
do
yeah.
that like
Squirrels
4 or
from-
5 foot up, so
Yeah.
the squirrels can't
The
crawl and
squirrel
get to their
raccoons can't
bird
crawl.
feeder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those bird feeder videos of squirrels jumping and like spinning on the.
Dude,
on
they'll
the bird
figure out
feeders
some
are the
way to get up there. I
funniest.
mean, I keep thinking of my deer lease, but how many people have you known that gets their feeder legs and they grease the legs and they
yeah.
put cages
Oh,
around
yeah.
the bottoms of them, and those raccoons and stuff still find a way. Like, you can do all this stuff, you can try everything in the book, but I mean, at the end of the day, if they want to find a way, they'll find a way. So just
They're very resourceful.
do your part to
Yes, they
cut your vegetation back, keep your bird feeders away from the house, keep your house cleaned up, put some traps out every now and then just hope for the best.
And while you're doing all this, know you're doing something kind of manly. Know
That's
that
true.
you're taking care of business. So
You're taking care of your house. You know,
Cleaning
it's,
up.
that's right.
it's pretty manly stuff. I mean, this may be simple stuff for a lot of people, but I know a lot of people that don't know what a trap is or what to put in the back of the trap, like tuna. But it's simple stuff that if you have a problem underneath your house or around the house that you can take care of without asking anybody for help, that you can do at your house very simply. So
And a side note before we end, all these animals also carry disease. So the
Glove
50-foot rope,
Right.
gloves, tarps, things to keep them from getting hold of you is always a good idea.
yeah, man, thought that went well. I learned stuff. I appreciate all the info you gave me. So Darren, last week
Yep.
we had a pretty good dinner, and for this week's producer's corner, I was thinking you could tell us all about it, man.
All right. Well, speaking of traps,
Yeah.
the best way to catch a bunch of crawfish is with
Oh.
traps. So, like that segue there.
It's the spring in Texas, and that means we like to have crawfish.
Yeah, we
And by like, he means love.
love it. We're not always as hardcore as our Louisiana brethren,
Brethren.
Right.
but you know, we do like to throw down some crawfish. Yeah, so we did a crawfish boil this weekend, and I've been a part of a bunch of them, but this was the first one that I did that was mine. So if you're gonna do one, determine how many pounds of crawfish you need. We did 90 pounds, which is a lot of crawfish.
What was that per person?
About 2 or 3 pounds a person if you're gonna have other stuff like corn and potatoes.
Right.
And
So it
stuff
probably
like
ends
that.
up being about 4 or 5 pounds per person.
Yeah,
Total
when it's
food.
all said and done.
Yeah.
And it depends, like, if it's going to be a quick, like, here's all the food, everybody eat, or if it's just kind of, the way we always do ours is, or ones I've been a part of, or just kind of come in when you get there, eat throughout the day. The longer it sits, the hotter
Right.
everything gets, and the better everything tastes. So we started around 4 o'clock, and get your water boiling. It takes a while to get your water going. But once you get your water boiling, we did all of our corn. We did corn, potatoes, mushrooms. We did boiled eggs, which actually
Onions.
turned out pretty good. Onions, garlic,
Dude,
hot dogs.
I've never
sausage.
seen boiled eggs.
Yeah, it didn't really didn't infuse the eggs with the Cajun goodness that I really wanted it to. But
So you just dropped whole eggs in there and everybody peeled their own eggs.
yeah, and then everybody just peels their own
Sweet.
eggs. It turned out. I mean, they were good boiled eggs, but nothing.
It didn't taste much different than a normal boiled egg.
Right. We were thinking we had a 100-quart pot. What in the world can we throw in here to just keep it filled up?
You had like a shoe or something in there.
Yeah. Made with love. We spit it in a little bit. It's fine.
I was
Just
out
kidding,
back
we didn't do
whistling for coyotes.
Really.
Yeah. So we did all the veggies and stuff up front. Sausage. We threw hot dogs in, which we haven't done before. And then
All beef?
all beef, of course. Hebrew National.
I'd have went with Bar S.
We're fancy. Can't do a crawfish boil and not be fancy. Wouldn't get my mullet cut just for the crawfish boil. So
Looking good, by the way.
appreciate that. Yeah, so we throw the crawfish in after you pull everything else out. Throw them in, cook them, boil them for, once your water's back up to a boil, throw them in for about 5 minutes, cut your fire off, let them sit for 15 minutes, dump them in a cooler. If you can keep people away from it, let them sit for another 20 minutes in the cooler. But we found it's hard to keep people away, especially when they're hungry and a little tipsy, maybe. So,
That also goes with a crawfish boil.
yeah, for sure. And then you just kind of add a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of we used Louisiana crawfish bowl seasoning and crab oil, the actual bottles of oil. You can find pretty much any grocery store. And then some of the bags of the crawfish seafood seasoning stuff that you can throw in. A couple of those. Those are hard to find this time of year. So, anyway, that was pretty much it. We did 90 pounds, so it ended up being 4 rounds of cooking crawfish after we cooked. So we did 5, get everything up to a boil, throw everything in, let it cook.
So put your water in the
Reheat
pot,
it.
bring it up to boil with all the seasonings in it.
Yeah, throw your seasonings in very beginning.
So
Like,
then
as
once the
soon as you put
seasonings
water
gets in, I dump all my sides in.
Yep,
And
we
then you
do.
cook that for how long?
Till the potatoes are done. There's no real time. Just,
So you
gotta
cook that,
watch
then
your
you pull
potatoes.
that out and put it in a cooler, and then you put your crawfish in.
It's going to take some time to get that much water up to a boil.
Oh yeah, 100 quarts. It probably took us 45 minutes to an hour.
100 quarts.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a big pot.
I mean, it
was a
wasn't
bunch of
100
pot.
quarts of water. It was probably 60 quarts of water, but still, it was a big pot. You got to leave enough room to dump everything into it. But
Do you feel like a witch?
a little bit, yeah,
was a
brewing in
big
my
wooden
cauldron.
spoon.
Yeah, we had a big metal paddle. We were stirring everything up with.
Well, that's cool. So what
but it
was
was
the
pretty cool.
final number you recommended crawfish per person with all the sides in it? Like,
So we had 35 to 40 people, somewhere in there. Then that's including kids running around and stuff. And we had 15 pounds left over-ish of crawfish.
so not bad.
So we were pretty much on the money. I mean, anytime I'd always rather have leftover.
So we'll just say 3 pounds a person.
Especially when
you
you're
think?
entertaining.
Yeah,
If you're
figure
gonna have
about 3
20
pounds.
people at your party, get 60 pounds of crawfish with
Yep.
fixins.
Yep.
It's not bad.
No, it's really not. I mean, crawfish is expensive, so if you're gonna do it, I mean, plan
What
on
is it?
spending the money. We paid $3.76 a pound, I think.
And I know if you
Yeah,
go
it's
somewhere
high.
this time,
Hondo.
if you
on
go
crawfish,
to a restaurant this
you got
time
90
of year,
pounds.
Yeah,
$4 a pound.
it's $109 a bag for a 30-pound bag.
dang. And I
Yeah.
know if you go to a
Yeah, so it's
restaurant this
high.
time of year, it's gonna be about $10 a pound cooked. So
Yeah, if you're willing to wait and you can do
Later
it
in the
like
season.
May or early June is kind of the end of the season, you can get a little bit cheaper, but you also sacrifice a little bit of quality.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these farms are trying to sell the best, and all that in the beginning. The season usually starts
The last
for
thing
crawfish.
you want's a
like,
low quality crawfish.
I mean, there are low quality crawfish. I promise. Like, you can get a whole batch of those little bitty ones that aren't worth your time. You
Yeah.
just frustrated. But we didn't have really like almost all of them were either ginormous
yeah, they
or
were awesome.
like
They
perfect.
turned out
eating
really,
size.
really good.
Yeah, and we didn't have maybe 3 pounds of dead crawfish when we got back, which was pretty surprising to me because I don't know where these guys are getting it from, but we went to the colony to pick them up, drove around with them for 2 hours in the back of the truck in a cooler, got back to the house and purged and cleaned them, threw them in salt water and cleaned them in the cooler for 4.5 hours before we cooked them. Like there weren't a lot of just dead crawfish out there, so.
That is
That
one
was-
thing to, if you are going to have a crawfish boil, to like pre-plan this to where you order it a week out, 2 weeks out,
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
it is. That way you can pick it up the morning of your boil because you do
it's
want
an
them to be alive.
all-day event. Like
Right.
be like lock and load and be ready to do it. Like you got to order. I would say at least 5 days ahead of time. If you can order sooner than that, probably the better. But we waited because we were trying to see if prices would go down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but most places have your order in by Wednesday, pick up Friday, order in by Thursday, pick up Saturday kind of deal. So, but you got to plan it out, and then they got pickup times. You got to make sure you get there. You got to put a down payment on it. Like it's a whole crawfish business, serious business, man.
I met this guy. I was on vacation one time, and he wasn't from America, but he was like, "Man, you
G'day.
Americans like to party," and I'm like, "What?" Or like, "Y'all always find excuses to party." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Super Bowl. Y'all just all get together and
Heck
drink.
yeah, man.
Y'all make up Cinco de Mayo. You're not even Irish, but you celebrate St. Patty's Day. You have crawfish bowls. It's like we just all want to get together, hang out, and have some fun."
Absolutely, man.
yeah.
I can't think of a better way to do it this time of year than a crawfish bowl. And
Yep.
like I said, you're going to spend a little money on it. You need to plan a whole day from it. By the end of the day, we finally cleaned everything up and we're done about 1 o'clock in the morning. I started at 6:30 that morning, and I was wore out. I woke up the next day and I was like, God,
And if you're gonna do
I'm
this,
sore. I'm hurting.
drink much better alcohol than a mead Texas drink.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
gotta
it's,
say,
it's growing on you a little
I
bit.
kind of like it.
Well, Wade, let me pour you one more for the goodbye cheers, man.
I
Yeah, cheers.
I
Man.
need some more.
Hey, thanks everybody for listening to another episode. I hope y'all learned something. I know I did. I appreciate all y'all, Wade, doing research, Darren helping us out with this, and yeah, hopefully everybody tunes in for another episode next week. See y'all later.
Go Varmints.
All right.